You don't have to hate someone to let them go. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is choose peace for yourself. Hey, softies, it's Dani, and welcome back to INQ Essënce, where we pour gently, speak honestly, and hold space for the stories that shape us. Today's pour is a tender one. It's a letter, a reckoning, a moment of release. If you've ever tried to build a relationship with a parent who couldn't or wouldn't meet you halfway, if you've ever bent yourself in quiet ways hoping to be seen, this episode might feel like your reflection. I'm sharing a letter I wrote to my father, not to make him feel bad, but because I finally stopped carrying the silence. This one is for the daughters who tried, for the grown women still healing the little girl inside, for every softie who's ever had to say, I love you, but I need to love me more. Let's get into it. Before we deep dive, let's check the vibe. Are you feeling sweet today? Light, joyful, soft, maybe even a little nostalgic? Strong, grounded, present, rooted in your no's and your yeses? Spicy, bold, magnetic in your glow, even if it's making people squint. Maybe you're steeping, still figuring some things out, not all the way brewed, but warming up. You could be spilled, overwhelmed, stretched, but still showing up with your heart in your hands. Or maybe it's an empty cup kind of day, low energy, tender, in need of softness and space. Take a breath. Check in. As for my cup, I'm steeping in truth today, sitting with old wounds that are finally getting air. Some of it hurts, but some of it feels like relief. I'm somewhere between spilled and strong, tired of carrying silence, but proud I found the words. Proud I chose myself, even if it came with grief. This is a self-honoring pour, and whatever's in your cup today, I'm just really glad you brought it here. There's a different kind of heartbreak that comes from wanting something soft, from someone who's never known how to give it. For most of my life, I've tried to find a way into my father's heart, not in a dramatic movie moment kind of way, just something simple, a shared memory, a nickname that felt like it was only mine, a time he showed up just because I needed him, not because it was convenient. At one point, I thought I found it. He called me baby girl. And for a moment, I felt seen, special, until I realized every daughter got that name. So I kept trying. I called to talk about business or credit or pretend to forget something just to keep the conversation going. I remember when we talked about buying a house. I thought we were building something until the conversation shifted to someone else's win. And then came the silence. I lost my job and he disappeared. Said he'd take me to dinner to cheer me up. He never showed. That kind of absence, it sits heavy. It piles on top of other absences, like the time I asked him if I needed you, would you come home? And he said no. He didn't know I was at my breaking point, barely holding it together after my daughter was almost taken and my job was draining the life out of me. Or maybe he did know. And that's what hurts most. When I was in the hospital, really sick, like IVs, antibiotics, and a PICC line in my arm sick, he was nearby, but he didn't come. And still, I stayed quiet, kept hoping, kept reaching, kept folding myself into smaller versions of daughterhood, hoping maybe this time I'd be chosen. But I've grown tired of bending. So I wrote a letter, not to send, not to stir guilt, but to release myself, to say, I love you, but I'm done chasing you. That's the letter I never thought I'd write. The one that sets me free, not from love, but from longing. And maybe someone listening today has their own version of that letter. Maybe you've been waiting at the door of someone's heart, hoping it'll swing open. Maybe today is the day you realize your peace isn't on the other side of that threshold. It's in your hands now. Whew, that letter took years to write. Not the words, but the courage to say them. I used to think, if I try harder, if I just stayed patient, if I gave a little more grace, then maybe the relationship I wanted would finally grow. But here's what I've learned, and it took therapy, heartbreak, and a whole lot of journaling to get here. You can't build a bridge by yourself, and you shouldn't have to beg to be loved well. This letter wasn't about shaming my father. It was about setting myself free. Free from performing, free from hoping someone might someday show up for me in the way I've shown up for them. Free from shrinking myself to feel easier to love. And if you're listening to this thinking, girl, I've been there, then you already know letting go doesn't mean you don't love them. It just means you love yourself more now. You're allowed to outgrow the version of you that waited by the phone. You're allowed to grieve the fantasy of who you hope they'd be. And you're allowed to protect your peace, even from your parents, especially from your parents. I used to think stepping back meant giving up. But the truth is, stepping back is how I finally stopped breaking my own heart. So, here's your permission slip, friend. You don't need their permission to heal. You don't need their validation to name what hurt you. And you don't need to keep trying just to prove you're worthy. You've always been worthy, even if they couldn't see it. Today's ink drop is, I don't need to be chosen by the ones who couldn't see me. I was the light the whole time. Say it again to yourself. Write it down. Whisper it if you have to. You don't have to wait to be chosen. You already are by the highest version of you. All right, let's take it to the page, because sometimes what we can't say out loud, the journal already knows. This week's prompt is simple, but not always easy. Who are you still waiting on to choose you? And what would it look like to stop waiting and choose yourself instead? We do have a gentler option. What's one way I can show up for myself today without waiting for anyone else to do it first? It doesn't have to be big, just true. Even the smallest act of self-choosing counts. Write it like a letter, or a list, or a release. Whatever form it takes, make it honest, make it yours. And if the tears come, let them. Because healing isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the quiet decision to stop handing out front row seats to people who never show up. Choose you this time. You made space to be here today, and that matters. Thank you for listening, for checking in with your own heart and holding this story with care. If this episode touched something in you, send it to someone who might need a little extra courage to choose themselves too. And tag us using hashtag INQ Essënce or hashtag First Pour Friday. I love watching this softy community bloom. And hey, if you've got a story about healing, about breaking generational patterns, about choosing yourself over proximity, I'd love to hear from you. We're always looking for future guests and honest voices. Head to dannycarr.com/INQ to connect. Next week, we're exploring the magic and mess of becoming emotionally available to ourselves first. Because before you can pour into someone else's cup, you've got to know what's in your own. Until next time, protect your peace, prioritize your rest, and pour gently. This is INQ Essënce, and I'll meet you here again soon.